years ago, RI President Arch Klump started the Rotary Foundation. And the purpose of the foundation was to sponsor projects that would do good in the world. And today, the Rotary Foundation spends millions of dollars each year to make the world a better place. And today, I'm delighted to have Kathy Cantor from the Strasbourg Club talk to us about a global grant that she put together with a lot of different other clubs, our club being one who participated in this global grant, and tell us about what we did and how the progress has been made. But first, just a little background on what a global grant is. I went to our website, and I actually printed it out so I won't mess it up. Global grants support large international activities with sustainable, and that's a big focus, it has to be sustainable, measurable outcomes in Rotary's areas of focus. Okay, here's the quiz. Rotary has 6 areas of focus. What are they?
Education.
What's that again? Humanitarian, yeah.
Health.
Peace.
Education.
Education. Mothers and children, saving mothers and children. Literacy, right, supporting education, yeah. Clean water, sanitation, hygiene, and growing local economies. So a global grant has to support one of those areas of focus. So it's very important to understand what those are. But it also, again, has to be sustainable and measurable. And the grants support different types of projects, humanitarian projects we talked about. Can also be used for scholarships for graduate level academic studies. Can also be used for vocational training teams. And the one that Kathy will tell us about this morning actually was a vocational training team, where groups of professionals travel abroad to teach their skills to local professionals so that they can continue to have that service in their communities. A global grant has to be at least $30,000, so it's a big project, a measurable project. And the foundation has to go through, and the foundation will provide half of that, up to $200,000, can be up to $200,000. Clubs and districts contribute their district designated funds and or cash contributions to the World Fund matches. The DDF is matched 100% and cash is matched 50%. So the foundation really has a huge, huge portion of funding these projects. So it's my pleasure to introduce Kathy Cantor. She is a member of the Strasbourg Club. She just retired as being the Assistant Governor for Area 2. And her husband, Byron, as they pointed out, is a past district governor as well for their district. So a very, very strong, dedicated Rotary couple. So Kathy, delighted you're here today.
Good morning. I'm awfully glad to be here. Before I start my program, I want to put a plug in for July 22nd. Area 1, 2, and 3 together are sponsoring a music concert with Orkney Springs, the Shenandoah Valley Music Festival. Has anybody been there? It's a wonderful way to spend an evening. So what we've done is sponsor this concert. So we're trying to sell 200 tickets. The tickets are for a seat, but you don't have to go in and sit in the seat. But you will have a ticketed seat when you get there. You'll get a voucher. I have tickets with me. The tickets are $50. $19 of each ticket will go to polio. As you know, that's our initiative this year. And each area is supposed to be sort of in competition with the next area on Raise a Pint for Polio. Here's a perfect place to raise a pint for polio. It is the Piedmont Symphony with a rock band. And they are celebrating the Summer of Love, which was the summer of '67. Maybe you remember. You go either way. In the printed brochure that they sent out, Rotary has a nice little section right as you open it telling about the concert. I will leave tickets with your club. Again, please, please, please bring your friends. They will have designated tents for us, so you can share with other Rotarians. Bring your wine, bring your picnic, whatever. Okay, any questions about that? July 22nd. July 22nd. Thank you. So, our global grant, this was quite a process. Jamaica started, for us, in 1988. We started traveling to Jamaica, family. We did the tourist thing for years. Oftentimes, the connection for a grant or for an initiative will be born in that. Somebody knows something about the area, has been there, whatever, brings it back. So this was a long time. In about 2005, Byron actually started going to the Montego Bay Rotary Club on a regular basis. They, in turn, started the club in Negril. Well, we started going to Negril more than Montego Bay. My club is partnered with the Negril Club. The Negril Club has 15 members. They are amazing. Everything that happens in Negril, Negril is on the most western end of the island. It is strictly tourist, no real town, no real county seat or anything like that. They started St. Anthony's Kitchen along with the Catholic Church. They have a feeding program. They started with lunch, it's grown. Ms. Pearl, the lady that I'm standing with, she runs the clinic, or the kitchen. She gets there about 5 every morning. Those are her workers. Don't miss in the top picture who's serving lunch that day. Our own Janice Wilkins. Then to be, go.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, I just figured out who she is.
Yeah. So we did that when we were there. The Negril Club, along with starting this program at the kitchen, realized that kids were hanging out in the schoolyard when they should have been in school. So that prompted them to begin to think why. A lot of children just hanging out in this yard, this dirt yard where they would come to have lunch. They realized that kids weren't in school because they didn't have the proper identification, the birth certificate, to be enrolled. So they took it upon themselves to begin that process. At this point, they have about 45 children now in school that wouldn't be in school, which meant going to Kinston, getting their paperwork in line. They did it. Then it prompted, okay, what else do they need? They realized now you have 9-year-olds that are just starting school. Instead of at 5, here they are 9. So they couldn't read, they couldn't write. So they started a literacy program to begin to get them ready. And they worked a lot. Once they enrolled them in school, they just had a regular where they tutored and tutored and tutored. Math and reading and writing. That initiative led to the, as we'll get to it, the See Better, Learn Better program, because they realized they couldn't see, some of them. This is, wait a minute. This is the Negril Rotary Club on one of their regular meetings. It's sort of a mishmash. They never have a speaker. It's basically, what are we doing? There's nobody to speak. They all either own hotels or are retired. That's it. Don't miss in the upper corner are now DGN, Tim Carter on his trip, visiting with Negril and of course Byron. The president is the lady in the white shirt holding the flag. In 2014, Alex, he was then DGE, I guess, said, please, please, please find a dental and an eye clinic. He knew we'd been looking in Jamaica. We'd been looking. So off we went again. And as it happened, I mean, and it was serendipity, through another Rotarian, we met Dr. McCloy. He is not a Rotarian. He is associated with what's called the Mission of Sight. He is American from Ohio, lives 6 months each place. And that sort of morphs depending on what's going on and what teams are there. But he helped build the clinic that we used. So we found a space. That's the problem. We had all along been going and teaching how to brush and going to schools, but there was no space, no dental clinic, no health clinic with any materials. The clinic is located in Frome, which is about 45 minutes from Negril, kind of down and around, and then back up into the mountains. It's actually in a sugarcane field. literally in a sugarcane field. You just drive, you can't see left nor right. Yeah, it's kind of weird. You hope nothing's coming. But they built this 18,000 square foot building. And their premise, the Church of the Nazarene, this is something they do worldwide, their premise is build it, they will come. And here we came. So it was pretty amazing. They had, when I first went there, that first November, there had been no teams. They had 2 dental chairs, but no clinician, no. On the eye side, Doug was practicing. So he rented some of the space, and he basically had 2 practices there. He had the mission practice, and then he had a private practice. He's an optometrist. So we began to write the grant. When I say 9 months of phone calls, 9 months of phone calls. It was an amazing process. And thank heavens for Zoom. I had never Zoomed. Business wouldn't happen with the Caribbean if you didn't, and including his world. That's how he does practice. He's on it with his practice in Ohio while he's in Jamaica and vice versa. So it really does work. Mike Mefford was amazing. If you have an idea, all you have to do is take it to Mike, and he will hold your hand and get you through. It really is quite a process. It also changed. While we were there with Alex and Woody Sadler was there, the Crawfords from Tennessee were there. So here we are ready to work, and they're like, okay, we're back to the See Better, Learn Better project, which Negril had already initiated, because we knew this was coming, but we didn't know we'd get the grant. We were still putting it together. So they had started the process of screening and saying, we've got to do something with these children. So we went and worked for 3 days, I guess, in schools doing the screening. Well, then we began to think, okay, this is really hard. Now we're going to take these children that have to be taken to the clinic or have to have further examination to the clinic on a bus. That was, so I'll get back to that. But we had to change, and we wouldn't have known that if we hadn't been there. So these are the clubs that participated in the actual funding of the grant. Now there are different initiatives along the way, which is what you all were part of, the toothbrushes and supplies. Then of course the partner club, your international partner, you have to have a club on the ground. Rotary International has to have somebody sign off on what's happening along the way. Of course that would have been them. We weren't there the whole time. Then of course our district and the other district has to participate. At some level, it's not all going to be equal. Then Rotary International will match the funds. Our grant totaled over $100,000, which was pretty amazing. There was a VTT portion of this. All global grants, as Kathy said, won't necessarily have that. And you could have a VTT without a grant. Typically, the premise is, if you're sending $100,000 worth of equipment, you want to make sure they know what to do with it, or install it, or have people on the ground that can continue to operate it the way it should be. So that's the premise behind the VTT, and why it lends itself so well to being part of taking equipment. The little screen on your left, that's what the club had already purchased. That's what we used to screen in the schools, and that became part of our grant. That little machine anybody can use, and a child will look into it, and it prints out a little prescription that tells you whether that child is within normal limits or needs further attention. This is one of the days we were at the school doing screenings. Up here you can see us working. That's actually the president of the Negril Club. Alex, in the interim time, all the kids come in groups. So you're doing a class at a time. So you're trying to entertain the ones that aren't up there walking across to keep it some semblance of order. None of them had ever met a real airline pilot. Huge. It was just like that. He became the focus. And of course, simple, just showing, and they all want their picture taken, and if you let them see it, it's a big deal. But the fact that he was a pilot, that just was more than they had ever hoped. Then the children that needed further exams, and that's the other problem. Their incidence of needing eyeglasses is much greater than ours. Whether it's because of the sun or nutrition while they're, who knows, but a lot of them need glasses. So it meant putting these kids on a bus, taking them the 45-minute ride, and switching out. It was quite an ordeal. So this is, again, we were at the clinic. The lower picture is Dr. McCloy. There were students there the week that we were working from Indiana University. And so certain parts could be done by them, and then the final thing had to be with Doug. So he was busy. Then back on the bus, and that was the treat in itself. Yeah, but they're pretty excited about their little glasses and so on. They were good. So that's when we realized that it wasn't going to work to bring all the students there. So we went back to RI, and we said, can we modify the grant? Because by this time we had the grant for one set of equipment. We decided it needed to be mobile for that side of our project. And RI, again, they're willing to work. You just have to be able to, again, show why that makes sense. So we changed. Then we started with the vocational training team. Ours was a little different in that we had 3 different segments that we were going to work with. We had 2 eye segments and then the dental side. I was the actual leader. I never met the 2 that led the other parts of the team because it was all about who could do what we needed done. They do not necessarily have to be Rotarians. They have to abide by all of our guidelines, and the money had to work a certain way, and it could only be for certain things, and that was fine. But it was, okay, who are we going to get and who's going to be able to do exactly what we need with regards to the equipment that we were sending. First part was our optician, Amy Malone. She had been to Jamaica a lot of time. I've never crossed paths with her. We talked, we Zoomed. She's who helped us develop what we needed, but then we couldn't find that exact person. And she's like, well, I can do it. So she came from Washington State. She teaches actually in Washington State, and she was the optician. So what she did is her responsibility was to teach the technicians that were already in Jamaica, Jamaicans, how to fit, how to further screen. Again, their laws are a little bit different than ours. So an optician is more of a technician there. They strictly are doing the glasses and fitting them and post that exam where the doctor has said, this is what they need. So she did that. This is her working in the schools. Gives you a little bit of an insight as well into some of their classrooms and how they're set up, a little different than ours. The picture on the left, you're right, they're pretty excited. These kids get these glasses and they're going to vamp it up, and they really were. I happened to be on when these were being delivered. So at this point, the glasses are now sent to the U.S. Dr. McCloy has a grant. It's cheaper for us to send them back to the U.S. to be made. So that part is still coming to the U.S., then a week later they're back. So that was in March. In April, and you might remember, in March, if you were at conference that year, we did the program where we Skyped into them. Amy was on that call, and you saw a child and his father, and then Dr. McCloy was also on the call. In April, after conference, we led the dental segment, and that was Bob Hall, who is the tall white guy. That's who they want to see. When the patients come to the clinic, they want to see the tall white man. Got it. Bob Hall is a member of the Winchester Club. He's in Byron's club. Byron was an unofficial member. He was not actually on our team. Byron's a periodontist. We needed a general dentist that could basically pull teeth and do some restorative. And then that's a picture of Doug. Patient care was wonderful. I went as a hygienist. Bob also took his assistant. it's amazing. They just all show up and will sit for hours until you get to them. They're so grateful, they hang on every word that you explain to them. They want to know, what can they do? How do they do this? What they want to know, and if you happen to see that child again, they can repeat everything you told them on how they should brush, when they should brush, what they should eat. They get it. We took part of our responsibilities were also to teach again the Jamaicans the new autoclave that was taken, to make sure they knew how to operate it properly, how to take x-rays. The first picture, that's what we were standing in front of. One of the pieces of equipment that we took was an x-ray unit. Bob and his assistant, Juana, actually doing restorative. They have two nice clinic setups. It's all old and it kind of limps along, but it does work. The third part of our team was the ophthalmic surgeon, Dr. Davis. He performed more than 75 cases of cataract surgery, and in other more minor ones, but those 75 patients were basically blind. The worst case, by the time they were getting care, I mean, there's nobody on that side of the island. You have to go to Kingston, which is just impossible. You know, it's 5 hours away and nobody has a car and so on and so forth. So these people couldn't see, and all those cases are basically saved for whatever ophthalmic surgeon's coming through. Dr. Davis was the third team, and so they basically work 7 to 7 practically, 4 days a week, and they can see between 70 and 80 patients in that time frame, which is an amazing amount of patients. Then also, he worked with Dr. McCloy. We sent a laser after follow-up. I don't know if anybody's had cataract surgery. Sometimes you need to go back and they need to sort of fine-tune it or get a little bit of the covering off that tends to form more. That's very much what happens in Jamaica. And most of them need to come back for follow-up care. So now Doug McCloy has the laser, so he can do the follow-ups 2 and 3 months later after these teams have been there. This is Dr. Davis actually working. Now the woman that scrubbed with him is actually the president of the Negril Club. She is a surgical nurse, and of course he might bring some support staff with him, whatever the team is, but this was Dr. Davis. And everybody helps, the volunteers, but she was a nurse, so she could volunteer in a different way. And you see the patient that now can see. So what we've done, the next phase, when we were there in January of 7, those were the 3 parts of the actual VTT. So that's what that fulfilled our commitment to RI for that part. We had to substantiate what we did, who we did it with, what locals were trained, boom, done. Now what's the next step? Well, when we were there in January, we hired a dentist and a dental hygienist to run this clinic part-time, which is amazing. So this is the sort of mission clinic on the dental side that Doug has been running on the eye side. So now with volunteer help, it is sustainable in that it's a fee for service. Even when the Rotarians were there, we charged. Minuscule amount, but we charged to help defray the cost of each patient. It probably costs about $5 per patient. When you add up x-ray film, Prophy angle, the little apron that they put across you, the disposable Prophy cup, the salvage, all those things, by the time it's said and done, you're between $4 and $5. And then a toothbrush, something that you're giving them here, this is what we need you to do, some paper that shows them how to brush. So that's your cost. So that's what has to happen with every patient. That's your minimum you have to collect. Then of course if it's restorative, you have additional supplies that are necessary. So they've been hired. It's a work in progress. We went back in April, and I worked 4 days with the hygienist and the dentist in the clinic, helping. They're brand new, they're young, they were trained in Kingston. They've never run a dental practice. It's a whole different gig. It really is. But now I have a rapport with them enough that they're comfortable. They'll call me, they WhatsApp. I didn't know what WhatsApp was, I do now. They'll send me dental records, this is what I'm seeing, what do you think? Because they don't have a resource. Most of us go into practice with somebody else. You have somebody else to ask. You can begin to, or you go to study clubs or whatever. There's nothing there, nothing. So it's really working well. There's a big learning curve now to teach people that they need to have their teeth cleaned. They're used to it. If it hurts, pull it, boom. So it's different. The next thing we did was we personally bought a mobile dental unit to try. Very different, wonderful. So this gets back to the same premise as taking the eye care to the schools. Now this hygienist can take, I needed to learn it, so I'm learning it. I now know what I need to go and take everything I need to set up a clinic in a remote site. So she worked with me 2 days doing that. So that's the next phase. Because again, they can't get there. We think it's easy, oh, it's 45 minutes jump. For us it is. We call a driver and somebody takes us 45 minutes. Doesn't happen for them. So that's the next phase. And since I put this together, the next step for us again will be in May of 18. We are working to take dental hygiene students from Lord Fairfax as a part of their education to Jamaica, to this clinic, and we'll do both. We'll do mobile, where we'll go to the schools, and we'll actually see adult patients as well in the clinic. So I wrote a district grant this year to get another mobile setup. The little units that you see sitting on that table that I'm working with, it literally looks like a roll-around suitcase like you would carry on, and it's a freestanding dental unit, totally self-contained. It's amazing. Unfortunately, it's $4,500. A little bit of a problem. But they work. You plug it in, you put your water in it, you're good to go. The chair and the operator stool is about another $900. Then the little white thing that's sitting on the table next to it, that's what's called a Cavitron, and you've probably had that used. It sprays a lot of water. And with adult patients in Jamaica, it's an absolute must. I mean, they just have the hardest, they're hard. Most of them have never had their teeth cleaned. So you're working with a 50-year-old that's never had their teeth cleaned. So that's really what a mobile setup needs to be. That will be my project that I reach out to clubs with now. I did get a district grant for the $4,000. So now I have most of a unit. So now I need a chair, a stool, and a Cavitron so that I have 2 setups that I can take with these students and say, okay, this is where we're going, blah, blah, blah. They will also serve, as I said, the equipment in the standing clinic is old. The compressor goes out regularly. They will have backup. You don't have to stop seeing patients that day until somebody gets there to fix it. So that's where we are. We've sort of got 2 segments going. We have the standing clinic, we have the mobile clinic. Now the hygienist will be able to do these mobile units on some basis. When she's not at the clinic, they'll get their pattern going. And then we'll start with dental hygiene students every year, whether they're from Lord Fairfax or Virginia Western. As you may or may not know, our program at Lord Fairfax is actually part of Virginia Western. So each year we'll make that available so that we can take dental hygiene. We can see a lot of students in that week time. It's a great place. We do play along the way. I would invite anybody who would like to go sometime with us. There's always a job, there's always screening. We basically go twice a year for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks at a time. Last week in October, 1st of November, we're going. Some other folks from our district are already going. If anybody's interested, see me. As your club looks to your international projects this year, please remember that we are working toward taking dental hygiene students from Lord Fairfax. Thank you.